Good afternoon, and welcome to the SMM More channel, where we give you more information about the most important court cases in the last century, with Sophia, Malaika, Muhammad, and Maeve.
To start today's video off, we have the Central Park Five, a very famous case of 5 teenage boys, Antron McRae, Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, all between the ages of 14 and 16, around the age of a sophomore in high school. This case started with a beaten body being discovered in New York City's Central Park early in the morning on April 20th of 1989. Tricia Maioli, a white female investment banker. She had been repeatedly raped and fell unconscious for 2 weeks, unable to remember anything of what had happened to her or what had occurred. The jogger caused widespread public outcry and the quick arrest and conviction of the 5 Black and Hispanic teenagers. Former President Donald Trump led the case against the 5, who came to be known as the Central Park Five. All 5 young men, who were among a group of over 30 teenagers hanging out in the park that night, were apprehended. Each of them served between 6 and 13 years in prison until new DNA evidence and a confession proved that convicted rapist Matias Reyes was the only culprit. Tricia Maioli could finally have peace of mind. She says in an interview with ABC News in 2019, "I so wish the case hadn't been settled. I wish that it had gone to court because there's a lot of information that is now being released that I'm seeing for the first time." The 5 had never went to trial. They never got to speak their truth. But eventually, the charges against the 5 men were dropped, and they received a $41 million settlement. Sometime after, Netflix created a show called When They See Us, to which Yusuf Salaam said, "We got something here with this Netflix series that is most certainly going to be a tectonic shift with the criminal justice system." He wanted to bring awareness to real events that had happened to them. As of October 21st, 2024, the Central Park Five is suing Trump because during his presidential debate, they claimed that he essentially defamed them in front of 67 million people, which has caused them to seek to clear their name all over again. They got their justice, finally, after almost 2 decades in the court system. But was the judicial system merciful towards them? No. They suffered, and they're still suffering from false accusations being thrown their way.
No littering! That wasn't me! Did you see her litter?
Yes, I saw her eat the candy.
You're under arrest.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I saw someone do it, and I was just walking by.
We have an eyewitness
No,
account.
the
You're
eyewitness
under
did
arrest.
it. The eyewitness
We
did it. It
saw
wasn't
you.
me. It wasn't
She
me.
saw you. You're under arrest.
It wasn't me.
You're going to jail.
Coming in at number 3, we have the case of Diane Jones as one of the worst discriminatory court rulings. Diane Jones, an African-American woman, was wrongly accused for drug trafficking. Jones allowed her former Caucasian boyfriend, Ronnie Cook, to use her house as her and her children moved into her ill parents' house. However, little did Joan know, Cook was using her house as a place to deal his drugs. When Diane returned to the house, police arrested her even though she wasn't involved in the drugs. At her trial in 2000, her lawyers didn't properly defend her and she was sentenced to life in prison under Alabama's tough sentencing law, even though her prior crimes were minor. The Equal Justice Initiative, known as EJI, took her case, found that her lawyers had a conflict of interest, and helped get her conviction overturned in 2005. After serving for 6 years for a crime she didn't commit, on August 17, 2006, the charges were dropped and Diane was released. She later earned a college degree, got a job, and in 2017, she received a full pardon, which also restored her voting rights. Jones's case showcases how institutional racism in criminal justice is very much real. Her story shows how the justice system is unjust and how those of African American descent are often targeted to racial profiling and are also more susceptible to surveillance, arrest, and are often wrongly accused.
Next up on our list, we have a case many of us know about today. I am sure many of you are aware of the name George Floyd. George Floyd was a 46-year-old black man whose tragic death in Minneapolis, Minnesota on May 25, 2020 sparked worldwide protests and calls for justice and police reform. Floyd's death brought attention to the issues of systematic racism, police brutality, and the disproportionate use of force against black Americans. His story and the events surrounding his death have a profound impact on the global discussions about race, justice, and equality. George Floyd was accused of attempting to use a counterfeit $20 bill to buy cigarettes at a convenience store in the Powderhorn Park neighborhood of Minneapolis. The store employee called the police and officers responded to the scene. Floyd was initially cooperative, but was arrested and handcuffed after the police arrived. The encounter quickly escalated when Floyd was placed on the ground, with Officer Cavin pressing his knee into Floyd's neck. Floyd repeatedly told the officers that he could not breathe, and witnesses on the scene pleaded with the police to release him. Despite Floyd's pleas and the growing concerns of bystanders, Cavin maintained his knee on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. During this time, Floyd lost consciousness and was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The video footage of George Floyd's death quickly went viral and ignited a widespread outrage. The video, which clearly showed Floyd's distress and the officer's lack of response, was a powerful call to action for many people, particularly within the Black Lives Matter movement. Floyd's death opened the eyes of many and allowed us to see firsthand what racism can do. Despite losing George Floyd, Floyd's family received some level of justice when Cavin was convicted of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter, while the case also led to increased scrutiny of policing practices and calls for reform. The term mercy is deeply connected to Floyd's case. The actions of police officer Derek Chauvin, who showed a lack of mercy by using excessive force despite Floyd's call for help, highlights how the absence of mercy can lead to devastating consequences. On the other hand, the global response, including calls for justice, reform, and healing, reflects a social yearning for mercy.
Order in the court. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, and we'll be investigating the case of the litterer. But let's hear from our witness first.
I was just walking in the park, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw her litter.
Now for the defendant, what's your side of the story?
I was just walking in the park, minding my own business, and out of nowhere, this girl drops trash, and I'm walking behind her, and then that's when the police came and caught me. And the police just happened to be on the scene at the same time as I walked by the trash, and they started chasing me, yelled at me, and wrongly accused me. The eyewitness did not see what actually happened, and they only saw the end when I was near the trash, even though I did not have that in the first place.
Defendant, do you want to add anything else to your story?
This is a case of police brutality and wrong eyewitness account.
Based on the evidence presented to the court, we find her.
On July 25th, 1985, a restaurant was robbed and the manager was wounded, being shot but not killed. Days later, the manager identified Anthony Ray Hinton from a photo lineup, even though Hinton was in a warehouse over 15 minutes away from the crime when it happened. Now, Hinton has achieved justice. Born in Alabama in 1956, Hinton was 29 years old when he was arrested. He had no criminal history and was an honest man, working for money. Upon his arrest, his mother was screaming and crying, begging the police not to take her son away. Shortly after his arrest, Detective Doug Aker told Hinton, "I don't care whether you did it or didn't do it. In fact, I believe you didn't do it, but it doesn't matter. If you didn't do it, one of your brothers did. And you're going to take the rap. I can give you 5 reasons why they're going to convict you," he said. Number 1, you're black. Number 2, a white man is going to say that you shot him. Number 3, you're going to have a white district attorney. Number 4, you're going to have a white judge. And number 5, you're going to have an all-white jury. When Hinton was arrested, it would have been easy for him to give up, to devolve to the lows of prison life. But soon he realized he had a goal. He realized that his mother wouldn't be alive forever. And if he wanted to feel good about himself, then he would need to start valuing every day he had on this earth, the good and the bad. Hinton's wishes for freedom came to fruition when Bryan Stevenson, a esteemed lawyer and author, picked up his case. In his initial appeals, Hinton had employed a below-average lawyer and a civil engineer that botched evidence. This time, Stevenson made no mistake and had FBI forensics experts present evidence. On April 3rd, 2015, Hinton was finally released, almost 30 years after he was initially arrested. Today, we look at Hinton as an example of racial bias in criminal justice and how he was able to achieve justice through the mercy of Bryan Stevenson, who took on his case with the empathy and kindness to believe that Hinton was wrongfully detained and imprisoned. Our Constitution says that everyone deserves the right to a speedy and fair trial, and Anthony Ray Hinton did not get either of those. For this reason, we should label this case as one of the most discriminatory cases of all time.
Wait, okay, what do I do?
Stop! No! That wasn't. Can I just. I'll just.
What is wrong? Wait, I'm not gonna look at it.
This is so unserious.
Can I throw this away?
Yeah,
Or
wait.
should this be evidence?
Yeah, well, that could be evidence.
What is she doing?
I'm not looking at you. What do you want me to do?
Alright, you can't look at me. You can't look at me. Don't pan to her. Just like.